We are God's servants working evangelical, conservative, separatist, independent, fundamental, Baptist. Each of those terms played a significant role in my development, not only during my childhood, but well into my adult life. After all, kind of markers of identity where I grew up. So roughly 10 years ago, sitting in a therapist's office and hearing this sentence just completely shocked me. I am not an evangelical. My eyes shot wide, my back. I had never heard anyone say that before. Yet in my core, I knew the words still hanging in the air were true. They had come out of my own mouth. Shannon and I had been visiting our local Episcopal congregation on a weekly basis for at least a year. I kept telling friends from our previous church's Bible study that it was days just needed a break. But that weekend, when we returned to our old church to celebrate one of those friends' weddings, the disconnect was palpable. Experiences I had known as comfortable, warm, and familiar now felt nearly as alien as a foreign language that I was hearing for the first time. I matches, sometimes even connect with a few intentions and emotions. I could recognize particular customs playing out, but I simply couldn't make sense of it anymore. My therapist took it all in stride, but for me, it was a life-changing moment. Like massive wings had just sprouted from my back, shattering chains I didn't even know had been binding me throughout my life. At that point, I could recognize what I wasn't, but apart from being what kind of subset I was. Honestly, I still can't. We get so caught up on labels: progressive, conservative, evangelical, mainline, Episcopal, Baptist. And that's just within the church. That political view get even more divisive, but they don't have to be. I spent last weekend up at the cathedral in Albuquerque. It was my first real experience on the safe side of COME, the Commission on Ministry to the Baptized. It's the that discerning God's call in their lives. When I had gone through discernment a couple of years ago, that kind of retreat was fairly grueling, an interview process that determined whether or not one could take up holy orders. Here it's much more expansive, working not with but with lay people who are simply trying to figure out what might be next in their lives. I had been looking forward to this experience, but on the very first night, I saw another priest walk into the room, and my enthusiasm instantly dampened. Still being fairly new to the diocese, I haven't had much chance to get to know most of the clergy from the area. However, every time a particular individual, whether in brief personal encounters or even in Zoom meetings, they had rubbed me the wrong way. Their presence and personality reminded me of that weight that had fallen from me when sitting on my therapist's couch that afternoon. Oh well, I sighed to myself. At least they aren't on my team. I figured I would just do my best to avoid them and minimize interaction. Own feelings accidentally disrupt our discerner's process. The next morning, I was setting up our team's meeting space and watched warily as I saw my unwitting nemesis walk into the room, sit down, and begin looking through their notes. One of our members hadn't. So, just a few days earlier, this individual was appointed to fill in. I was not pleased. My attitude had already gone from nervous excitement to guarded optimism But now it looked like the entire weekend would simply be an endurance challenge. As we began talking, our discerner wincing at the other priest's questions. Who is Jesus to you? For all he's done, are you worthy? I wouldn't have asked those kinds of things at all, at least not directly. They're just so blatantly spiritual and emotional, so evangelical. But as time went on, my internal cringe began to soften. Between their questions and mine, we were uncovering a fuller picture of the person in front of us, drawing out aspects of personality, proficiency, and calling that I doubt either one of us would have discussed. After sessions, I found myself modifying and adapting some of the other priests' regular questions as they began to pick up aspects of my own. We may have been coming from different viewpoints, but we were a great team and genuinely shared a common goal. My animosity dwindled as my respect grew. By the end of the weekend, I saw this person as a threat or a challenge or someone I somehow needed to counteract, but as a friend. Our personalities still clash a bit. And I imagine if either of us were to stoke the pride hiding in every human's heart, we could have theological. But what had initially appeared to be the miserable prospect of working together ended up being a genuine gift. Each of us were able to unveil aspects of the discerner's skills and note additional areas where we might be able to. In committee discussions, we both ended up translating concerns or questions we had into a shared language that allowed us to see more clearly. Despite their apparent disconnect, that's really what both Paul and Jesus are talking about today. With 1 Corinthians addressing division amidst the congregation, and Jesus giving reconciliation and mending relationships on both a personal and societal level. Because difference doesn't need to divide us. God's kingdom is not like empire. Jesus encourages us to work toward unity, but he doesn't demand the last destination. The reign of the heavens never encourages division or hammers wedges between well-meaning people or groups just to amass power for itself. It doesn't promote fear and suspicion among neighbors. It doesn't thrive on labels and subcategories and factions. Christ is big enough to contain the full spectrum of our interpretation, even those we might not like so much. Our contrasts end up being like the colors of a rainbow, each distinct, yet together, expressing the full wonder and glory found throughout Christ's body. That is actually what peace, why it's such an important part of our worship. It might feel like this time to just greet friends and visitors, but it has a structural purpose. It's our time of collective reconciliation as a congregation. Having confessed separate sin, and before approaching the altar to present our lives to God, we, like the person making the offering in Jesus' parable, turn to one another and choose love over animosity. We choose forgiveness and reconciliation over division. We choose the children of God in front of us, all of them, over the labels and divisions empire imposes to separate us. I'm not evangelical. Maybe you are. That is also perfectly okay. As I was reminded and convicted about last weekend, God is much bigger than any single one of us, than our opinions and interpretations, than our personality, approaches. The truth is, we in the church need each other. We might see things differently. We might approach ideas from different angles. We might even wish we could really change the other person on occasion. But again, we need one another. The shining fullness of who each of us are. To accomplish our mission throughout the world, we need each member of Christ's body functioning in harmony. You and I might not be the same, but neither of us are alone. We need not let anyone divide us. We are. Amen.